I coined the phrase tidy, authentic beats virtual. So it's fine to have it in your house somewhere as long as it's tidy, because we notice the little piles of stuff. Again, we're nosy. And if we're bored, we're trying to figure out what is that in the background.
Welcome to No More Bad Events, a fun and insightful podcast for professional event organizers and for anyone at any level interested in producing nothing but the best events. Each week, we'll talk with legendary event professionals to get an inside look into what they think makes a great event. And in the process, we'll draw out insider secrets, non-traditional approaches, and compelling stories from the most captivating personalities in the business. We'll definitely get the skinny on reaching that one big goal: no more bad events. I'm your host, Scott Bloom, comedian, event MC, and now your podcast host. Let's get started. No More Bad Events is produced and presented by eSpeakers, the most trusted, easy-to-use, full-service online platform for finding, connecting with, and hiring the best keynote speakers, hosts, and presenters in the world. With the deepest catalog of professionals available through the eSpeakers marketplace, you can be assured that the speaker you book will be the absolute best speaker based on your goals, bar none. eSpeakers, the #1 way to find your next perfect speaker. For more information, go to espeakers.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of No More Bad Events. This is a very special episode. When I say very special episode, I'm not trying to evoke the promos of the 1990s ABC network sitcoms where there was a very special blossom on a very special blossom. And, on those episodes, there would be some life-changing, life-affirming moment on the show. It's a sitcom, but there was a very serious moment that happened, maybe a sensitive topic, and the main character would learn and grow from it, and everyone would feel good at the end. Well, you're going to feel good at the end. You might not feel emotional, well, maybe excited, but you'll definitely learn and grow. How many times have you been on a Zoom or Teams call and you were the one who had to present? And I know it can be a very nerve-wracking, anxiety-ridden experience if you haven't had a lot of experience, but even if you did, you're alone in your office in that room. It's just you and a camera and a screen. Well, on this episode, we're hoping you become a little bit more confident and feel like your presentations become a little more effective, have a bigger impact on your team. My guest today is Rebecca Morgan. Now, Rebecca Morgan is a certified management consultant and coach, but more importantly, not only is she a certified virtual presenter, but she is a master workshop facilitator in the virtual mastery realm. In fact, beginning on May 15th, Rebecca will be hosting a 3-day virtual master presenter course on the eSpeakers platform. So if you're an event professional, an internal or industry speaker, or even a professional keynote speaker, you can definitely benefit from this episode because it's chock full of smart concepts and tips for making the most of any virtual presentation. And today, Rebecca clues us into some of those finer tips and nuances of elevating the effectiveness of presenting digital. For example, did you know that screen management is important? Knowing how to toggle quickly between a slide and a gallery will allow the presenter to instantly capture close-ups of real virtual moments that otherwise might be missed. We talk about camera time because knowing where you are on screen at all times creates a connection between you and your virtual audience. And on the episode and in her course, she shares some simple ideas on how to become more comfortable in front of the camera. I'm telling you, Rebecca is passionate about sharing tips on amplifying the experience to ensure nothing but the best virtual presentations. So if you're ready, it's now time to get real so we can talk virtual on a very special episode of No More Bad Events.
So I started giving this master course probably in 2021 because I saw even experienced presenters were doing things that I thought, oh man, they don't know what they don't know. And with a few tweaks and nuances, they could be so much better. And then I partnered with eSpeakers to offer this new designation after the course. And that's how we got to where we are today.
Well, I definitely want to talk a little bit more about the course, but tell me just in general, because I had to make that transition as well. Mainly, I'm a keynote as well, but I do a lot of MC work. And so during the virtual time, during the pandemic, I was virtually hosting a lot of these meetings. But one of the things that I had to contend with was the fact that a lot of my comedy is very interactive. Besides the laughter of the audience, I need people to play off of. So how do you first attack that? We'll break down the course that people can take at eSpeakers in a moment, but what's the biggest shift, the biggest change that a presenter needs to get used to when they're playing in front of a camera as opposed to an audience, physical people being in the room?
Sure. So in I think it's the third session, we talk about screen management and how to set up your screen so you can actually see the gallery. And I also do stand up. So during the lockdown, I would do my little 5-minute bits. And what we learned there was to ask people to unmute if they were in a quiet place so you could hear the laughter. Like sometimes I'll come to a spot in a session and I'll say, okay, if you're in a quiet place, please unmute for the next 10 seconds. And then I will have them do something where either I can hear the laughter or hear them do a drum roll or something like that. But most of it is the screen management. I find most people don't know how to set their slides to not take over their screen. And once they get the hang of that, then they can pull the gallery right in front of their camera. And then I can look at the faces and who's laughing and say, oh, Fred, you really like that one, I see. Yes, or give me a thumbs up if you, and just constantly where we used to raise hands, things like that, just continually asking them for their reaction, even if you can't hear it.
What about in a situation, because I know the different platforms have different abilities of sharing and views and stuff like that. What if you're just presenting to a camera? Well, now let's get out of the comedy world, because that's its own thing. And some people were able to do it successfully during the pandemic. Some people, it was a struggle. It's its own weird thing. But just in general, let's say someone's presenting and they can't see a gallery. So we're out of this sort of interactive thing. What are some of the things they need to keep in mind while presenting to a camera?
Okay, couple things. First of all, I give them some tips on how to get their camera in the middle of their screen at eye level, wherever that is on their screen, but at eye level, and how to determine that, just simply measuring, because most people look down or they look up because their camera's hanging off their screen, or they look over to the sides, and they need to stay focused on the camera. And some people put a little Post-it around it with a smiley face, or they poke a hole for the lens in a picture of their family or their best friend or their dog or somebody that they can focus on delivering to. Because for a lot of people who are used to in person, that is a really important point. They're so used to the reactions and they say they get energy from people, but we're in a different place now. And in the scenario you described, they just need to stay focused on that camera because that creates that connection.
Yeah, I know that people were really challenged with that because I used to do meetings. Sometimes they were international, and I have a home studio, but I would be here at 4 a.m. alone. It's quiet. And I'm talking to these people. I don't even, I don't see them. I just have to assume they're there. I was able to try to do comedy that I knew in my mind was funny. I didn't need the response back. So technical is some hard skills. Let's talk about some soft skills. What else can they do just to be more authentic with the camera? Because, some people have experience working digitally. A majority don't. And I just want to be clear, the reason we're doing this on the show today is because event professionals, one, they might be hiring a virtual presenter, so we're going to give them some clues on how to do that. But also, they're going to be leading their teams on different platforms. What can you say to some of these event professionals who don't have the same presentation skills as an experienced speaker to make them more effective with their teams?
Sure. And I think the camera is so critical, that eye contact on the camera. Sometimes I help them see, like in most scenarios where there's just two, like you and I right now, there's two people on the screen and they are always talking to the other person, which is off to the side, versus if they hit hide self-view, I'm only seeing you, Scott. And so I have a camera the size of a dime and I put that camera on your forehead.
Okay.
So whatever they're looking at, they need to make friends with it and envision it's a friend that they're talking to, not just a black dot.
I know in this course, it starts, May 15th? Is that
Yes,
when?
this one is. Yes.
And we'll talk about how to get there and how to connect with these speakers. But what are some of the things that people who are hiring a virtual presenter, what are some of the things they should look for? What should event professionals need to know besides maybe, I'm sure watching a demo video of them doing virtual is important, but what are some of the other things they can look for?
Well, I would ask the presenter, what do they do for audience participation? And I will tell you, 90 to 95% of the people say, oh, I have lots of audience participation. We do chat and polls.
Right, which everyone does.
And to me, I don't do polls because I think they're tedious. So you're looking at what creativity can they bring to the experience beyond these boring things that, like you say, everybody's doing. And like I said, there's lots of things in Zoom or Teams or Google Meet or whatever you're using that you can use, whether it's part of the platform or just the simple, give me a thumbs up if, or in the reactions, give me a smiley face, or, just getting people physically engaged somehow helps them stay focused. And I do plan meetings myself as well. And that's one of the questions I would ask if I were hiring someone, is like, tell me about your audience interactivity and see if they're more creative than just the same-o.
So this course that eSpeakers is putting together, it's called Virtual Master Presenter. So you can become a VMP.
Right. That's the designation they get. So they go through the course, which is 5 3-hour sessions. And I know some of you are saying, oh, my heavens, 15 hours? Who needs 15 hours on this? But I've had really experienced veteran presenters. One the other day said just applying one of the ideas he got from the course amplified his group's interaction and their engagement, and just one of the myriad small things he did. And he's a certified speaking professional already. He's a veteran professional speaker. So the program is full of those sort of nuances that really, I think, I'm biased, of course, but I think it takes somebody who's in the trenches. I've been doing this for decades. And I watched many, and I see just, if they tweaked it just a little bit, or if they did this just a tiny little bit, it would have so much bigger impact. I don't know that I answered your question.
No. I think you did. Well, let's break down the 5 sessions. I know the first session you talk about show your best self. Well, we're going to hear it on that day.
So we look at their background. You have a new background. And ideally, the background is something that at the end of the session, if somebody said, what was Rebecca's background, that you would go, I don't really remember. It wouldn't be so busy, which is a lot of people have really busy backgrounds, and it's distracting because we're nosy. We are nosy people. So I try to make it simple. I try to make it reflect my brand, which is my brand colors, just a little bit of who I am, but really something very simple. If it's got too much, either bookcases and stuff like that, we're trying to read the titles of the books.
Oh, yeah, no, that's what I was doing. I was reading titles of people's books, because that was the background du jour for a while, was the bookshelf and the different books and the up lighting. And some of it looked really well. We got accustomed to that. What do you feel about this? This is a pet peeve of mine. When they're on meetings or something like that. So I have a professional green screen, I got lights, and I got a projected background. But what about the people who just put like a background? Forget about it, it's a crazy background. But because it's not on green screen, I think everyone knows what I'm talking about. Their head gets lost. They're blurring out. Do you recommend that? Because that seems to be distracting.
No, I coined the phrase tidy, authentic beats virtual. So it's fine to have it in your house somewhere as long as it's tidy, because we notice the little piles of stuff. Again, we're nosy. And if we're bored, we're trying to figure out what is that in the background. So just tidy, authentic beats any of those virtual where you lose your fingers. And green screens usually have to be ironed and well lit. They take a lot more effort than most people are willing to put in.
Would you say a professional presenter would need something a little bit more specific, or they can get away with, once again, just presenting with some, tidy background?
Tidy background, if it's got good lighting and if their camera's in the right place, it's fine. I watch a lot of cable news, and I watch these experts come on who they don't have a green screen behind them. And some of them are great, and some of them are way too cluttered, or their camera angle is wrong. And that's my ideal job, is to coach those people.
We talked a little bit about eye contact. That's a whole session, enhance your eye connection. Besides moving the camera at a certain point, what else does that mean?
So part of that session is this whole thing about how do I manage my windows, small W, not the big W. How do I take advantage of my screen real estate? And what I see a lot of people do is they have a second monitor, which because they don't know how to take their slides off full screen, they have to have a second monitor to see the gallery. Well, that means they're always looking up or over to see their gallery, which is disconcerting because it doesn't feel like I'm paying attention to you, my viewer. So there's lots of nuances in how to do that. And no matter what slide program or what platform you are in, but we also then do breakouts to have people get checked. Because I had almost 30 people in this last session and I couldn't do that for everybody, but they could do it for each other. And then they could help each other see where they needed to focus because it's so critical. And frankly, so many people don't do it well.
And you folks at eSpeakers, get a majority probably professional speakers with their CSP. I know you get some other people like event professionals, and I know you want to encourage more event professionals because there's so much they can get out of this. Do you look at them differently? Should the professionals have a little bit of a higher degree? Do they need anything different than, let's say, an event professional?
I think we're all professionals, and I think we should all have the best we're capable of, no matter what our position. So I think it's applicable not only for professional presenters, but for the event professionals, as well as what I want the event professionals to understand is they could send some of their common industry speakers or maybe their inside speakers to the course, and they would still get a lot out of it. Because I see the industry speakers as not having that sense of continuous improvement we talked about. They have their deck, they have their presentation, and boom, they go. And the audience is there to hear their information. But if they're bored or if they're getting their email, it's not a good use of anybody's time.
Yeah, I mean, I think executives should definitely check something like this out. They're leading their company. They might have a situation. They have to do it right. We gave you a break in the first, 7 months of the pandemic, but now it's been a while and you're in front of your entire company. You need to have the confidence that you know what you're doing in a virtual situation.
So I mentioned I'm here in Silicon Valley. So I saw one CEO being interviewed, a big company, and he was at home and it was dark. Like he didn't have any lighting. He didn't even have a ring light or any portable light to help him. And then I saw the president of one of the platforms who was talking to the camera to the side.
So day one, we're going to show ourselves. We're going to do better. We're going to work a little with lighting. We're going to look our best. The day two. And are these consecutive days or they're over a period of a few weeks?
So they're over a period of 3 weeks because we do 2 days, usually Monday and Thursday, then Monday and Thursday. And then we take the next Monday off and we come back Thursday. So they have a week between that second, because the fourth session is on slides. And again, everybody thinks they know how to do PowerPoint, or I use Keynote, but there's so many nuances of how do you really get people engaged? How can you keep their attention? I say we're in the attention management business. You and I are not in the speaking or training, emceeing business. We're in the attention management business. So everything that is part of our presentation, how can we make it so that we're doing everything we can to keep their attention?
Yeah. And so one of the courses just focuses on that, is all these engagement tools. So what are some of the engagement tools you'll talk about?
Right. That's session 3. So I cover some that are Zoom specific, but I cover lots that are not Zoom specific. So things like how to integrate a treasure hunt in a way that it's specific to your content and is meaningful to the people, not just go, find something red. That's dumb. But
wait, I'm intrigued. I think I know the direction you're going. Is this where you would have a bunch of people on a Zoom call and we say, hey, we're going to do a little treasure hunt, and it's them leaving their camera, finding something and bringing it back? That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah. So they only have a minute. So in the course, I say, go find something that's close by that is a prop you don't usually use, but you could use to make one of your points. So it gets them thinking, it gets them up, moving around, they bring it back, and I have a few of them show us and report, and they'd never used that prop before. So now they have a new prop, and it just got them thinking differently about what they're doing. So for an event, if I were doing an event at an association, I'd say, grab something that's close by that you think has helped you be successful in your career. And then they bring it back, and I may just call on a few of them, or I may put them in a breakout of dyads to discuss, or, I don't know what I would do with it. It depends on the time and what the objectives are. I could just ask them, what do you think has contributed to your success? But that's kind of boring. I mean, that's better than just pontificating at them. But having them go take a physical object is just a little different. So I'm trying to always integrate different.
So you were starting to talk about session 4 where you're creating dynamic, engaging slides. Are there actual slide programs that people should use? I know what you were talking about making you bigger and them smaller, so you'll teach about that. But what are you focusing on that session?
So virtually everything I talk about is applicable to Keynote, PowerPoint, Canva, Prezi. They're principles. And the most common things I see that could be improved are the fonts aren't big enough. There's no controlling the message with builds or animations, things like that. And they're just not engaging, or they use clip art. They just don't think about. So what I'm asked them to do is to be a critical thinker on each of their slides. And first of all, ask, do I need a slide for this? Maybe I don't need a slide for this. If it's something just a duh kind of thing, why do you need a slide for it? And then the second thing is to make sure your images correspond with the points you're trying to make. So if you say something like, well, we're going to bridge the gap between the executive suite and the front line, and they put up a bridge there, well, does that help me remember gap that we're talking about? No, probably not. I just remember an image of a bridge, but I don't necessarily remember what it's trying to help cement in my brain. So helping them really look at, are the images matching the points they're making? And then helping them see how they can, most of them don't have large images. They have a small images that maybe take a quarter, a third of the slide. And they're just kind of boilerplate things. They aren't really that engaging. So I actually encourage people to take their own pictures of things. When my adult nieces bring their children to my house, I have scenes I want them to pose in. The little ones especially like posing.
I need you to really kill it in this next presentation. So guys, you're going to work. I got to take some shots of you. This is togetherness. You and your brother are playing. What about sizing of, these days, even in live presentations, people have a little bit more knowing that if you're going to use a slide, it better be important. No one wants to have you read along something that's on the slide. We don't need to see the statistics. Sometimes people will be putting up a quote. Okay, that's fine. Is there a percentage of how much slide stuff and how much you? And when you're on screen with the slides, do you want to be that little box there and the screen's really big? Or do you want to sort of mitigate that so that people are engaged with you as well as the slide?
So I love this feature that is built into both PowerPoint and Keynote now that is called Cameo in PowerPoint, and it's called Live Video in Keynote. And it allows you to put your image anywhere on the slide. And you can size it, and you can. So often I will have a slide that's just me, no content beyond just me, an image of me. So then I don't have to toggle between slide share on and off. So then I will make my image smaller, bigger, round, square, depending on what I'm trying to do, if I'm explaining a slide. But I encourage them to have no more than 2 or 3 bullet points per slide if they're going to do bullet points. And my attitude is people don't really care how many slides you have. They care that they can comprehend the slides you do show them.
And I know you conclude the course with talking about tech glitches. Before we go into tech glitches, is part of this course also just getting people comfortable in this sort of technical world? I know it frightens a lot of people. People freaked out when it was first coming. They have a little bit more experience. But are you, like things like, okay, I didn't know about this Keynote presentation feature where it can put me in there. After these 5 sessions, these 15 hours, you want people to feel confident with their equipment, with their lighting, with their PowerPoint. Is that a big purpose of this as well?
Of course, yeah, because they're more confident they are, the better they're going to come across, right? And they're going to be able to deal with these tech glitches. And frankly, some of them are going to ditch some of the tech that they thought they needed to have. For example, I don't talk at all about OBS, minicam, eCam. I don't talk at all about that because even though I live in the middle of Silicon Valley, my attitude is if it's tech, it's probably going to break at some point. And I've had them break in the middle of sessions, and
And what do you do? What do you do?
So that's what we do in the fifth session is how do we have a plan B, C, D, E, et cetera, so that if that happens, you are boop, because you're the pro, right? And if you're an event planner and you're giving a presentation, or one of your speakers is giving a presentation and they freak out when something doesn't happen right, their audio goes out. If you don't have a tech team there, you need to know how to just jump right in and help them out. Or if it's you giving a presentation, what can you do to do plan B? Shall we talk about the plan B I have set up right now?
Yeah, I know. Yes, let's talk about it. You have your iPhone. You logged in with an iPhone. So if somehow your camera goes out, we go right to the iPhone. You're already logged in. You're there. We just switch over.
So I have had this where my computer has shut down for no discernible reason, or I've lost the internet on my computer. So my phone is logged in through my self-service. And within 10 seconds, I can, boom, just go to my phone. It's in a stand that I can easily make it eye height. And within 10 seconds, we keep going.
So what do most virtual speakers get wrong? What are some common mistakes we can hear about? And then maybe they can think in advance before they sign up for this course. I want to definitely try to avoid that.
Sure. I think a lot of them we have mentioned. So let me just kind of recap. So the eye camera contact is not good, not strong. They don't know how to see the gallery if that's important to them. The slides are either boring or too small font, or they use the beanie people or other really kind of trite images. They don't know how to create a plan B. And I frankly usually have plan D. So every presentation I give, I have 4 different ways I could continue if need be. And I have had to go to plan D before, that the first 3 I tried and they failed. So those are a few off the top of my head, more of the, how do I get the audience to respond, to be engaged? Because my attitude is interactivity is different than engagement. So I could answer a poll and not really be very excited about that. I could answer it and then get my email.
That's
right?
Interactive, but that's not engaged. Yeah.
So engaged, my attitude is I think most presenters' job is to get people to think, get them to think, sometimes think differently. But if I just spew forth information at you, am I really thinking critically about, well, what does that mean? Or how would I implement a change that's going to impact that data, tomorrow or next week or next month? I'm not engaged mentally in it. And so I try to get people to get out of just involvement into engagement. And that's a distinction most people don't make, I don't think.
So let's say you got the presenter. We're going to sort of wrap up here with this question. I usually ask event professionals, what makes 11 out of 10 when you're talking about an event? So what makes a virtual presentation not a 10 out of 10, but 11 out of 10?
It's the nuances. It's really the nuances. It's the attitude of the presenter. How can I be a best service to my audience? And some of that is, as I'm sure our audience knows, is finding out about the audience's needs as much as you can ahead of time. What are their challenges? And that may mean as a presenter, you have to ditch some of your normal thing, your normal program, because it's really not relevant to these people. So that's scary, especially for our colleagues, the professional speakers who have a kind of a set program, but it's really scary for the industry speakers who don't know how to shift necessarily, because this isn't what they do full time. And you need to understand really what are the audience's needs and challenges, and how do I best serve them through my thoughtful questioning, my comments, my data, my images, my stories that they're going to be able to relate to at some level to get them to take some action at the end.
So what I'm hearing here is in this course that starts May 15th, the virtual master presenter course to become a better presenter digitally in a virtual world. It could be applicable to obviously professional speakers, industry speakers who maybe don't speak that much, and let's even branch it out to some event professionals who are leading teams as well. Where can they find this? What's the easiest way to get there? We'll put this in the show notes as well, but why don't you give a little plug for that?
Sure. It's a really simple URL. We made it short for everybody. It's bit.ly, bit.ly/E for E speakers, ES. So ES-VMP for virtual master presenter. And Scott, let's not forget that, as you mentioned earlier, that the CEOs or the C-suite or the directors could benefit too. And if an event planner said, I'd really like a custom program for either my presenters at this upcoming event or for my directors who are going to be speaking at this event, we can put together something like that, because maybe 15 hours for them is too much, but we would cherry pick the pieces that we thought would be most relevant to their group.
It's so important. I hope some of these companies take you up on that, to have a coach come in and literally coach some of these folks so that they can have a bigger impact with their teams, with their audience. Rebecca, it was a pleasure meeting you. I learned a lot. Some of this stuff, I've been applying over the last 2.5, 3 years. But I know the people who are listening to this, whether you're a professional speaker or someone in the event world, can definitely benefit for this. So I hope you have a lot of attendees signing up for that course. And thank you so much for joining us here on No More Bad Events.
Thank you, Scott.
That's it for now. I've been your host, Scott Bloom, corporate event MC and comedic keynote speaker. And of course, your connoisseur of connections. Oh, by the way, if you're interested, you can book me for your next event on eSpeakers Marketplace at espeakers.com/marketplace. And if you like what you heard, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. If you loved what you heard, drop us a review and don't forget to share with your friends. No More Bad Events is produced and presented by eSpeakers. Thanks so much for listening. Now go out and make your event a great one.